As you may already know, one of the benefits of the PRODIGY rack is the ability to add an optional height extension kit in the event you find that you need to raise the pull-up bar, or if you need to raise the height of the one-to-one fixed pulley, or if you just want to brag to your friends about having the tallest rack in the group chat. And of course, the Prime website gives all of the incremental measurements in which the kit will allow you to do so. But in doing my research, I still kind of struggled with determining whether or not I would need the height extension kit because, well, I'm an idiot for one, but also because I've heard stories about it being short. But I have learned a few things since owning the PRODIGY rack, and I thought maybe if there's anyone else struggling with how to make the same determination, I might be able to offer some insight. Now, before I get into any type of demonstration or anything like that, I do feel like it could be helpful if maybe you know a little bit more about how I measure up. So maybe you can try to, I don't know, use this as a point of reference or something like that, all right? Now, first, despite what my current driver's license might show, I'm actually only 5'11". I know, we can't all break the 6-foot barrier, but we do the best with what we got. And second, I have a 32-inch inseam, which I feel is fairly common, at least for dudes my height, maybe. Does that even make sense? The fuck am I saying? For dudes my height? And last, arm span, right? Some people call this wingspan, which I think sounds kind of weird if you don't have wings, but outstretched, measuring from fingertip to fingertip, is a solid 72 inches. I think that's how you measure that, right? Fingertip to fingertip? Am I measuring that wrong? Did I just inflate my arm span like those dudes that measure it from the bottom up? Anyway, it's as if I was supposed to be 6 foot, but maybe a few bad decisions in my formative years might have stunted that. I don't know. Okay, so anyway, that's me. Now, let's get to the rack and we'll look at a few additional measurements that I think may be beneficial in helping you determine whether or not you might need the height extension kit. The first thing I'm going to do is install the lat seat. Now, I'm going to put this all the way at the very bottom, or at least in the lowest setting that the rack will allow, which technically has us putting the pin in hole number 2. And if we measure from the floor to the top of the seat pad, we get a measurement of 17.5 American inches. And if you notice, when I sit on this, I get a pretty good 90-degree at the hip and also at the knee. And this feels pretty comfortable, actually. Keeping the seat where it is and measuring from the top of the seat to the inside of the bottom of the carabiner, I get a reading of about 65.5 inches. And as you can see, I look like a sugar-deprived 4-year-old trying to reach the damn cookie jar on the top shelf. Taking into consideration that we like to use different attachments for lat pulls and knowing that those attachments will definitely close the gap between your grubby fist and the pulley that the attachment hangs from, I think the best measure I could probably give in this scenario while we're in this position is the distance between the center of my calloused fist and the bottom of the carabiner, which turns out to be about 13.5 inches or so. And for shits and giggles, while in the seated position, I also went ahead and measured the center of my upraised fist to the floor at about 68 inches. So maybe not the most scientific approach, but if you have some specific attachments that you know you want to use, those measurements could be useful. Or maybe I'm just confusing things even more. You decide. But again, while the seat is still at its lowest position in hole number 2, and for those who are more visual, I'm going to show you a few of the attachments that I like to use so you can see how those stack up. So that is the seat at its lowest position, and understanding that the holes are spaced 2 inches apart, I'm not going to repeat that for every hole along the upright, but let's just move the seat up one hole and look at how it affects things like the angle of my hips and knee, and we'll confirm that the distance between me and the pulley is in fact reduced by 2 inches in case my garage is some sort of crazy scientific Pythagorean wormhole where the rules of subtraction don't apply or something like that. Okay, so we move the seat up by 1 hole or 2 inches, and you can see that the angle here is just slightly greater than 90 degrees at the hips and lips and also the knees. And of course, I still cannot reach the pulley. And with my favorite lat attachment, I'm still getting a full stretch. And just so you know, I did go through all the same measurements that I took previously, and I can confirm that every reading changed by exactly 2 inches. So, as expected, I am pleased to report that there are no anomalies up in this bitch. So the biggest takeaway is that it's going to depend mostly on 3 primary factors: your torso and arm length when it's upraised and you're sitting down, the seat position along the upright, and then also the attachments that you intend to use. So if you need to, you can review that, find a way to kind of replicate it in your own setting, and use the data that I provided to try to make a more informed decision that way. Okay? And one final tip, or something to consider if you do determine that you might be better served with the height extension kit. For those of you with a dual stack, you might note that just because you have the dual stack HLP does not necessarily mean that you have to buy the dual height extension kit to get more height from your pulley. Now, of course, if you're also planning to raise the pull-up bar, or if you have a need for additional height from both pulleys, for example, maybe you have multiple users doing lat pulls simultaneously, or if you intend to use both high pulleys in unison, like from the center of the rack or something like that, and you have a need for them to coincide, or if it's simply just a desire for a symmetrical aesthetic, then this tip won't apply to you. But if your interest in the height extension is solely to raise the high pulley in an effort to get more from your lat pull downs, you could order a single kit, save half the cost, right? It's $175 for the single, shipping is about $15 to my door, and the dual kit is exactly twice that at $350 plus $30 for shipping. And of course, that is before your MWPIG5 discount code is applied, so subtract like, I don't know, $7 or something like that when you use my link or my code. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is that you may have some options to explore that aren't as obvious just looking at the site. And keep in mind that if you get the single and then later you decide that you do in fact need or want a double height extension kit, you can always just order another single at a later date. There's no price break whatsoever. There's no savings in shipping costs to order the dual height extension at once versus 2 singles separately or anything like that, right? And if you've made it all the way here and you're still unsure, I would suggest holding off altogether. Just get the rack, try it out with your attachments. If you feel like you need the extra height, you can order it at a later date. Lead times on those things pale in comparison to everything else from Prime. So there's really no rush to order it at the same time as your rack if you aren't certain. Attaching it to the rack even after the fact is not that big of a deal either. But anyway, I hope that helps. Let me know in the comments if there's something that I missed. Otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, and in pretty much every single video I've ever posted to my channel, there's a link in the description that will save you 5% at primefitnessusa.com, or you can simply use my code MWPIG5 at checkout. Either way is cool with me. I really don't give a shit.